For our onion portion of course, the French onion burgers, we have to start with our onions, which come from caramelized, cooked down, sweetened naturally, of course, onions. So incredibly good. So as far, I just added a little bit of olive oil. As far as how you want to chop them, it is truly up to you. Some people I know don't like long, stringy pieces of onion, just for whatever reason, they just don't like them. So you can go ahead and dice them, chop them, strips, rings, however you like. So we are going to just kind of cook them out initially for a few minutes with the lid on. We want to kind of trap that steam in there and I want to say slowly, but it is going to happen quickly. You want to sweat them out. You want them to release some of their own liquid, juice, flavor, and just, it's going to be so good. So I just realized I don't have a lid for this pan. Give me a second. Okay, just take a smaller lid or a lid that fits your pan, and we're just gonna let these cook for about 5 minutes with the lid on, and then we'll come back. Okay, our onions have been cooking undisturbed for 5 minutes now. You see all this condensation on the lid? The lighting is over on this side now instead of it being like right here, but so it could be a little bit better. All of that moisture, it's gonna be super loud when I take it off, but all of that moisture is exactly what you want, and we got a good amount of color. So now we are going to grab a little scraper. Should have had that on hand first. Put our lid to the side. Now this is what I was talking about. You wanted to develop that color because they are naturally going to fully caramelize, but you want to get some of almost like a charred feeling to it. Now I am going to leave this uncovered. Now, because I'm going to work on the burgers, which you guys will see it's going to be, on my microwave, and my microwave is going off. But I'm gonna put this over to the side. I'm gonna reduce, well, right now I'm turning the flame off, but we're gonna reduce this to low, our flame, oh my goodness. We're gonna turn our flame to low, and we're gonna let this just cook slowly, uncovered, no lid, just like this, 20 to 25 minutes. But before we do that, we have to season. I'm gonna hit it with some salt. Now, it's always super loud whenever I do this on camera, but you guys know salt pulls out moisture, which is exactly what we want because you will not get the caramelizedness with all of that moisture in there. So we're gonna add some salt and some black pepper as well. Then just give it a stir. And now we're gonna let this cook on low 20-25 minutes. Okay, so now for the sake of not having to do a lot more dishes, I'm gonna use my same cutting board that I used for the onions. Of course, there was only onions on there. Now there's gonna be beef. So once again, just like my other video, my friend is incredible, gave me this before they were moving. So of course, I'm not recommending get grass-fed and it has to be finished and it's so organic. No, use what you have. Now, I just feel bougie using these, but I mean, I don't taste a difference. So the only thing that sucks is that you can't peel. Can you peel? Can you not? No? Okay, apparently can't peel it open, but we are just going to cut it. And I know you guys are like, where is your bowl that you're gonna put this on? Well, we're not using a bowl. We are just gonna form these into patties, and I'm gonna tell you guys, well, I'm not gonna tell you why I'm gonna form them into patties, but I'm gonna tell you, why don't I just clean up my mess? Okay, so I'm choosing to season them this way because I feel like I'm gonna get the most flavor for my buck, I guess, if that makes any sense, rather than forming it in a big ball and then mushing it together. I don't wanna make the meat tough. Now, of course, it's grass-fed, grass-finished, whatever and whatever, good fat content here and there, but I'm just gonna chop it in 4. Now I know, why don't I just use my hands just to get it roughly there. Then we're gonna form it. Okay, I'm gonna tell you guys a little trick. You're gonna place your wet washcloth underneath this or a kitchen towel. No more slipping, no more moving, no more turning. It's just there. So while our onions are still cooking, we're gonna form the patties. I always recommend taking off all of your jewelry. I don't care, even if you have a solid silicone band, it's just gross. Now, could you use a burger press? Could you use like a cookie cutter, something like that? Yes, but I like the more like rustic feel of it, I guess, rather than, I mean, rustic is just a fancy word for like homemade or like handmade, you know? I just like something that doesn't look too like commercially made. I used to be into this thing where we would, as Roman is just moving furniture, we used to go to Target and we used to get their pre-made burgers, but I cannot tell you guys how tough they were. They were so good flavor-wise, but they were so incredibly tough because they were commercially made and packed. So the meat was just so tightly... Okay, Roman is hammering away like Bob the Builder. Okay, I'm gonna form these patties and then we'll come back. Okay, as we are working on the last patty here, I think it's important to mention that besides just flattening it out and trying to make it as even as you possibly can and try to bring the corners together, of course. I'm gonna cook these inside, not on the grill, but burgers on the grill, you have to be careful because not only will pieces fall off or they'll slip in between, but if you have a lot of like random jagged edges, they're gonna get stuck to the grill. And grilling burgers taste so good, but I really recommend like a cast iron flat top because or else, I don't know, they just get super charred and really, really overcooked. Now, one thing I learned from Rachel Ray, not personally, but you know, Rachel Ray, I'm trying to be on your show, so holla at your girl. I'm gonna take her advice and you're gonna create a little divot in the middle of your burger. So that way they don't puff up and you end up with like a hockey puck or it looks like a flying saucer kind of thing. So either just take your thumb, press it down, kind of drag it out. Like I said, trying to keep the little burger ends together, but if not, it's okay. One way, pretty good. Same thing with that. Then we'll go on to seasoning. The seasoning, we are gonna keep it super simple. Are you guys ready for this? Worcestershire sauce. Yep, I said it correctly. This thing is like slipping, but for whatever reason, it's like stuck and it won't go back up. But we are gonna add just a little bit into each little divot here. Now, like I said, you could have added all in a mixed bowl, depending on, I guess, maybe how many people you're serving. Add it in one big bowl, mix everything together. But I'm just gonna do it this way because it works for your girl. Then we're gonna add some salt. I always say a teaspoon per pound of beef. This is obviously 1 pound. So we're gonna add roughly a little bit less than a quarter of a teaspoon on each burger. And now I always say season both sides, but only one side on the cutting board, the other side once it's in the pan, so nothing gets stuck and wasted on your cutting board. Then of course, some black pepper. Like I said, keeping it simple. Could you add a ton more? Absolutely, but just go for it. Then last ingredient, bum, 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 smoked paprika. You guys have been telling me for a really long time to buy smoked paprika. Finally got it. I could not be happier. Now, I always say the regular, this is of course for color, but the regular paprika, I've always said, has just been for color. But let me tell you, there is something, well, I know what the something is. It's the smokeness of it, but the flavor that comes from a smoked paprika, I would recommend still having both because not everything do you want to taste smoked because all your food then is just going to taste the same. But let me tell you, there is such a flavor difference with this. So remember, maybe you need to put a little label on here to remind yourself. Regular paprika, just for color. Smoked paprika for color and flavor. Okay, now we're just gonna mix this together roughly. If not, it's all gonna go in the pan and cook together anyway. So just give it a little pat, and then we are good to start cooking them. So actually, before we start cooking our burgers, we're gonna go back to, we're gonna go back to our onions. I had to transfer it to a smaller pan. Don't worry, I'm still gonna use a bigger pan for our burgers actually. Like I said, non-stick, the way to go in my opinion. Now, I'm gonna add a little bit of white wine. I said white wine and this is clearly red wine. But this is Stella Rosa, not sponsored, whatever. Stella Rosa in itself to me has good wine, like drinkable wine. I know that sounds crazy because all wine is like drinkable, you know? But the Stella Rosa to me was just a little bit too rich and deep and just dark for me. I wasn't a fan of this, but you guys know whenever I add wine to cooking, I typically use that one. So you want to have this reduce, of course. I forgot to turn on the flame. So we'll go ahead and do that. Then you just want to add a little bit of that for flavor. You can use sherry vinegar if you want, just for, I don't know, a different flavor, or beef broth, chicken broth, just something to add a little bit of oomph to it. But do you guys see this rich, deep, dark color I was talking about? That is what you want. Those are real caramelized onions. Now, you can even go further. And obviously, this does not look like 2 onions. I don't know if that's what I mentioned that I was adding in the beginning. This looks like maybe 1 onion, like a small onion. But all of the natural sugar starts to come out. So you do not have to add sugar. You don't have to add water, honey, maple syrup, juice, nothing. Just the onions alone with a little bit of salt and pepper is all you need. Now to the onions, I'm gonna add a little bit of thyme. I'd say, what is that, a half a teaspoon? Then we'll just mix that in. I always recommend toast your spices, warm them up, let them hit that fat. Let them hit everything that's in the pan. Give it about 30 seconds. Then I'm gonna add a little bit of chicken broth. Not a lot, only 1/4 cup, which is 4 tablespoons. So just a little bit. You can also, how many times have I done that in this video? You can also add beef broth or maybe just a little bit of water, up to personal preference. I have about half of this left, so I figured why not use it. It's about 1, 2, 3, 4. It's about 1/4 cup. Now you wanna let this kind of rehydrate everything. I know it's pretty, everyone hates the word moist. It's pretty like moist in here, but you want to just let everything bloom. One of my favorite things to do with caramelized onions is just kind of press them with the back of your spoon and just create almost like an oniony jam. Ugh, so good. Okay, I think this is pretty good. Now you can look, what am I saying? You can let this reduce down as much as you want. I'm gonna leave it like this for now because I wanna cook our burgers and then just kind of bathe it in that sauce. I love French onion soup, but when it's almost like thickened, but yeah, I don't wanna have to keep adding more broth to this. So maybe in the end, I'll reduce it down a little bit more. But if you think this is good and you want like some dipping liquid, chef's kiss. Perfection right here. Okay, now let's cook our beef. So in the pan that we were once cooking our onions in, we're gonna add a good little glug of some olive oil. Now I always say, let your pan get hot before you add the oil. Do not add regular oil to a cold pan and heat that up. You will start to get splattering. Okay, sorry about that, my camera died. But now we are back. I have our pan reheating, it's getting warm. Then we are going to add our burgers, season side down. Don't forget to season the other side. But like I said, our pan is relatively warm. It'll get a little bit hotter as we keep cooking. So we're gonna add all of them there. Typically, I would say don't crowd your pan for this. I'm not being too particular about it. I'm not really trying to develop too much color here. I'm just trying to get dinner done before like midnight, you know? So we're gonna add them in here, just kind of pressing down. Remember, keep that little divot in the center. And if they puff up, it's completely fine. You tried your best. Now go ahead and season the top side with everything that we seasoned from the first time. And we're gonna let them cook for about 3 to 4 minutes aside, just depending on your doneness. I'm gonna go about 3 minutes. Now it's been about 3 minutes later. I just went ahead and salt and peppered this other side. I didn't do the smoked paprika. I don't want it to be overkill, but I definitely just wanted to develop some color. Hopefully we did that. Ooh, okay. All right, now they look great. I'm gonna let these go about 2 minutes on the other side. Then we are gonna cut the heat off and then we can serve and get everything together. Okay, now let's talk serving. If you guys have seen my, ow, that is so hot. My Trader Joe's video, you guys saw me get the sourdough. It is so good. But I told you guys that it is a bit hard, so I just threw it in the freezer. And obviously then I threw it in the toaster. Now I'm just gonna use this. You could use obviously a hamburger bun, sandwich bread. Really, bread is bread, whatever you have. Maybe even a hot dog bun, just make it into different shapes. Also, you guys are definitely, we're just gonna cut this in half or just crack it in half, but you guys are OGs. If you guys have seen my ham dog video, it is, well, you guys will see in the video if you watch it, but basically if you want a hamburger in a hot dog style, go watch that video. So we're gonna crack this into 2. Then these are our beautiful caramelized onions. Literally, if you were to put this in a food processor or even just go at it with like the back of a spoon or a fork, just look at how jammy that is. So we're gonna add this to the bottom side of our bread. Even if you don't like French onion soup, but you just like a burger with a lot of onions and just sweet, jammy, juicy onions, you need this. Okay, we're getting a little bit of a spill, but it's okay. Then we can add on our patties. Now, of course, you could have added the onions on there on the top just to make it look prettier and better and more presentable, but then everything would just fall apart. And I know some of you guys are thinking, what about some type of sauce? Is this gonna be dry? Absolutely not. Now, people usually serve like a similar sandwich with a type, this is like a burger, but a similar burger slash sandwich with some type of like au jus on the side. Heat up a little bit of chicken broth, add a little bit of S&P and everything else that you added onto there. Make your own little dipping sauce or eat it just like this. My mouth is actually salivating. Now the last and final step, I'm just gonna add, this is just from Aldi. Oh, it literally says that. I'm gonna add a little bit of mozzarella. There are some people who are bougier and like to use like provolone or a Gruyere. Yeah, your girl does not like that. I like regular mozzarella and cheddar, white and yellow. A little fun fact, I'm just adding it underneath just so it can kind of like melt in a sense. I would have added it to the pan, but the pan had a lot of oil and I didn't really want my cheese to turn into that oily goop. But a little, maybe somebody knows or maybe they don't. All cheese, well, let me not say all. Cheddar comes white. Cheddar is naturally made white. It was made yellow to appeal more to children. So the only thing that is difference between white cheddar and regular cheddar is that annatto seed. So it's natural. It's not like food coloring in most cases. It is just colored orange. So if you think, I don't like white cheddar, I only like yellow or orange. No, you like white cheddar too, because white cheddar is just orange cheddar, just without the annatto seed, which once again, just like paprika, has no flavor, just color. Anyway, so you can add the lid or not. You can eat it open-faced, but I'm about to add the top bun. Oh, my mouth is salivating, but do you guys see this? I mean, look at how good that looks, right? Right?